All right, Scott, welcome back to the show. We got Real Water Sports and NVS Fins with us this morning.
Yeah, David. You know what? Real Water Sports. They're having a foil sale. I saw. I don't know if that's your talking point for this ad drop, but man, if you're into foiling, they got some new Armstrong stuff that just came in, so I'm pretty psyched on that.
Are you in the market?
No, I got too much stuff, man. Too much stuff. I'm trying to get rid of stuff.
Well, for those who are in the market, there is a foil sale going on. I'll tell you what most people are in the market for that will be listening to this:
Yeah.
a surfboard. And
Hell yeah.
The board that Pyzel has
Oh,
been riding is the Scorelord, which you may have heard about. It's kind of a new drop from them, and Real Water Sports just got a big inventory of them. So if you've had your eye on that, they've got dimensions from 5'6" all the way up to 8'6". So great all rounder for the everyman.
okay. Let me just say, look, everyone knows like I'm pretty easily swayed when it comes to surfboards. But this board, first of all, the name is great. From a marketing standpoint, the name like speaks to me, right?
We all want to
And
score.
and the board itself, the outline is beautiful. It's
Yeah.
just got this very classic. And then on top of that, the little marketing clip that they put out where the guys are surfing the board is like slam dunk. Then you're like, okay, yeah, that's kind of all I'm doing. Like basically I'm doing a bottom turn, and that board just it looks, it's got everything. It looks easy to ride. It looks super performance oriented. It looks like it kind of checks all my boxes, like I'm not going up into the air and doing flips and stuff and ordering pizzas. I am ordering a pizza on the wave face, however, with my hand jive. But the Scorelord looks, I've got to admit, like, you know, that one, if I was to pull the trigger, which I'm not, but maybe I am, I don't know. But that, I just got a brand new Rusty. So I'm kind of like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
exactly. We'll add
Oh
it to the
man.
list then for
Okay.
down the road.
Scorelord by Pyzel at Real Water Sports.
Well,
Check it out. Don't deny me, supply me. You know what I'm saying?
I saw it and I asked John, I was like, hey, what's the story behind
Hey
this board?
guys,
And he sent us
yeah, I'm
this
super
little
stoked
audio
on the new
clip
score
to
lord.
share with our listeners. So I'm going to
Like,
play
it's one of these
from
boards that
John's own words.
I've been making for myself and for my friends for so long, and then everybody always is pretty stoked on it when they see it, and it's just something that's like a little bit out of our normal realm of like performance boards, but still has performance ability, which is pretty cool. So as I've gotten a little bit older, and my friends have gotten older, and we've always kind of wanted to surf as good as we can, but sometimes we found that the boards we used to ride and rip on don't quite suit us as well anymore. And that's where I started making all these different things and a bunch of different iterations of this board before we settled on something that we thought everybody'd be really stoked on. And so far, so good. So hope it's something that can kind of give everybody a little bit of extra fun in the lineup, a little extra hope for catching a little more more waves, and just get your, keep yourself happy. So thanks.
And if you don't already know, John surfs great too. So if you want to ride what the Shaper is riding and keep your performance elevating into your 50s, this could be the board for you.
Well, and also let me say this, and we've said this a lot, and I'll just reiterate. I love the idea of riding the boards that the shapers that are about my age are riding.
Yeah.
Biolos made me a board, I think it was called the Tiburon, that was like his board that he and Dino were riding in Indo. About 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, John made me a Pyzalian because I go, John, what are you riding? He's like, this is what I'm riding. It's, and it was a little wider swallowtail Pyzalian. I took it to Indo. I loved it. And now 10 years later, we've got this iteration of what the, let's call it the middle-aged surfer is riding and the shaper is building for himself and his friends. That's kind of a no-brainer. Like that's like the key that's the unlock right there.
Totally. Well, like I said, go to realwatersports.com. They've got a video from Pyzel discussing the board, and then they also, one of their team guys, who's 53 years old, took it on a trip, and so he does a little review of the board as well. So there's plenty of information there. And like I said, there's 26 boards that they got in inventory, so one for anybody's size.
At Real Water Sports. By the way, Pyzel going to be at the Boardroom show. They got a booth. John will be there, so come out and meet John Pyzel at the Boardroom show in October.
And also, you might need fins for your new Pyzel, and NVS will probably be at the Boardroom show too, I bet.
Absolutely. For sure they're going to be there with their friggin' Jabi S fin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they've got, obviously, they do collabs with a ton of different surfboard shapers, but then they're also producing fins that we've seen designed by other people, like the S wings and the C drives that NVS has now partnered with, and they're manufacturing those fins as well. So they're doing just so much good work, and the fins are incredible. And, you can get a quiver of fins and expand your surfboard quiver that way. But what I do is I just rely on NVS. I just say, here's the board I got. Tell me what to ride. And they do a fantastic job guiding me.
Yeah, good stuff. NVS fins, Leif and Jamin. And they will be at the Boardroom show, so come by and see them. And you go to their website right now and check out all their offering.
Yeah, you can get them at Real Water Sports while you're there, or just go to surfnvs.com directly and check them out.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, guy. Welcome to the show. It is Spit. It's the Spit podcast. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass. We're talking all things surf and perhaps a few other things as well. It's Wednesday. It's May 6th. And good morning to you, David.
Good morning to you, Scott. Man, Snapper ran since I last saw you. Episode 3, Stab in the Dark, dropped since I saw you.
Really? I didn't know that.
We have a surf news show. You're supposed to keep up on the news.
I usually get like emails from them that say...
That's true. I didn't get the email this week.
That say Stab number 3 dropped.
Yep.
But we might have to hold off on that.
That's fine. And to be honest, can I tease it a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm kind of bummed on myself for not seeing it. Like I said, those guys usually tell us.
They usually do. You're right.
And can I interrupt and say, I was thinking about it during Snapper, and I'm like, there's no way Sam makes this drop during the Snapper thing. Let's wait a week, have the drop after Snapper, let the Snapper news kind of filter through Stab, and then go with number 3.
Well, they're pre-scheduled. The release dates are pre-scheduled. So I don't think that Snapper running or not running would have affected his release. But gosh, Ethan Ewing in the spotlight anywhere you look in the professional surf world right now. But what I wanted to say about episode 3 is it's very good, but it's more of the same. It's kind of like there's great surfing, not a lot of talking, draw your own conclusions, And to be honest, the boards from episode 1 through, he rides actually the final 4, so he's ridden all 12 boards by the end of episode 3, all look great to me. Like there's no real duds, and maybe that's an attribute to how good of a surfer Ethan is, and certainly there's 1 or 2 that do look better, and I think it just means that they're better suited to his style of surfing. Not that they're better surfboards, but none of them look bad. I got through all the rest of episode 3 and I'm like, everything looks fantastic. I would take any of those boards happily.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're almost getting so hypercritical or we're just so refined, I guess, in this because we've got the best surfer in the world on the best surfboards in the world or some of the best shapers building these boards. And yeah, I mean, it starts to get to a point where you're just fine-tooth combing through this stuff. And it's like, what teeny little twitch moment makes the difference between that board and this board? And I mean, to your average guy, do we want to see Stab in the Dark with Devin Howard and he's riding mid-lengths like the Score Lord? I mean, who knows? That might interest me more. No, I'm looking forward to seeing this. And go ahead.
Yeah, that definitely appeals to me as well. And I don't have the sophistication to even fine-tooth comb what he's riding. Yeah. He does. he's the guy who gets on it and he says, these are the differences. This one felt this way. But to me, I'm like, gosh, they all look fantastic. The one thing I will say that I would love if Stab could figure out is the boards all look identical to me as the viewer through the flattening of, television basically and putting it on a screen. So I would love if they figured out a way how to visually showcase the different bottom contours that he's talking about, or the different rocker profiles, or the different rail edges. And maybe that means like showcasing the CAD files or something, or maybe putting the actual board in front of a black background and lighting it in such a way that you see shadows and contours, because he holds the stretch and he's like, gosh, this board is so different. Oh my gosh, there's so much double concave. And I'm looking at it going, looks exactly the same as the other 11. So I trust that he's right. And I know that he knows that how that translates in the water and he can communicate it, but I just visually want to be able to see it.
Okay, this is a wonderful concept that you've brought up, and as you know, it is absolutely doable on these shaping files that they use. If it's Shape 3D or if it's Aku, I've seen it. You've seen it. I've been in front of it when Rusty was making me a board. Yeah. And he literally can turn the lights on it and make it so you can see that, and then he can flip the lights so you can see a different view. And that would be really, really a great addition from an edit standpoint, to just throw that in there while he's talking, and the voiceover of as we see that board spin in that CAD program.
That might be the best way to do it, because now that I'm thinking about it, it does get flattened by cameras and screens, but also even in real life, I don't think that people can their eyes aren't trained enough to fully understand the contours. Like, I'll see surfers picking up a new board that they got and they're looking for those things. And then the shaper might say like, it goes from single concave here to double concave here. You got to hold it at this exact angle and watch this exact transition. But it's really hard to identify with your eye. On those files, it's much more noticeable.
And perhaps another option in addition to that is just have a friggin', a flat stick that you can run along the bottom of the board and get the camera guy to just get a really good line on it, and just have Ethan go, see right here, and just run that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's getting into the weeds a bit. It's not as nearly as sexy and entertaining as the surfing itself. But from my experience doing the podcast for over a decade, people want the nerdy details. Like anytime we go into that stuff, like people respond positively asking for more.
Yeah. I would agree with that. So I'm looking forward to watching number 3. It should be pretty good. Sounds
Great
like
surfing.
You enjoyed it. Good surfing. And he's surfing the same spot?
Yeah, same 2 spots.
Same 2 spots. Okay. Cool.
I've
got some stuff for you.
Okay. Yes, ready. Please.
Okay. So first on my agenda is, of course, Snapper. I also have some thoughts on the tour schedule moving forward. And then, there's this crazy shark situation that's kind of made that's gone viral. And I have a must-see moment, but I'd like to start with a Who Said That?
Yes, I would love it.
Okay, so bear with me here. Okay, David, this is the portion of the show where I try to stump the listeners and you with a quote from a famous surfer. And I quote now, David, from a famous surfer. Who do you think this is? And I quote, I think the gap will always be there. Men's surfing is men's surfing and women's is women's, But I think the girls are getting better to the point where it's really noticeable. And I think the guys are starting to respect that. There are a lot more girls ripping today than there were 10 years ago. It's not just one girl here or there. Now there's a bunch of them. But the guys are getting better too, so it's hard for us to close the gap. Who said that, David? Was it A, Lane Beachley, B, Sophia Milanovic, C, Rochelle Ballard, or D, Stephanie Gilmore?
It could have been any one of them, to be honest. I'm going to go Rochelle.
You're correct. It could have been any one of them, but you're wrong. It's not Rochelle. I'm sorry, David. That was Sophia Milanovic in a 2005 Chris Morrow interview for Surfer Magazine. Sophia Milanovic after she won her world title. People don't think about Sophia Milanovic too much. Like, what is she doing? You know, like she's kind of in the limelight there, let's call it 20 years ago. I often wonder about some of these pro surfers, 20 years on. Like, what is she? Is she a young mother? Is she a mother? Is she like working on the Olympic team in Brazil or wherever she's? Where is Sophia from, by the way?
Peru.
Peru, right? Yeah, yeah. So,
She popped up in my awareness or in my Instagram feed maybe a year or two ago. And so I did kind of poke around her profile then just to see what she was up to, but I can't remember now.
yeah. Well, anyway, I was trying to throw you a curveball because of the Stephanie Gilmore situation. I mean, look, we had it was just an incredible event. It was nonstop action at Snapper Rocks. Stephanie Gilmore, Ethan Ewing, they sort of recalibrated our world back to the normal setting. And congrats go out to both of them. Of course, other standouts, Conor O'Leary, Liam O'Brien, Mateus Hurdy, Gabe, Medina, and Philippe Toledo. Your thoughts on the Snapper Rocks event, David?
Pro surfing is back. Competitive pro surfing is back. We had a long off season, and then we started with two really, really uneventful events due to kind of marginal swell that was spread out over the course of the waiting period. So it really was not exciting kickoff to the season, and I feel like this is the first event that really kicked things off. And the reason why it was, first of all, there was swell, so the waves are rippable throughout the event. But where I found the most excitement was the battles. Almost every heat was a back and forth battle. Like it wasn't, even the top surfers didn't quite dominate. Like the opponents, whoever drew Felipe Toledo, you would think is going to be just annihilated. They were going toe to toe with Felipe and forcing him to get those into that 9 range. And the same thing, it would transition. So the men's event was like that, where every heat, even the low seeded surfers were surfing incredibly. And then it transitions to the women's side. And I'm like, okay, like, let's see, this is probably, they're not going to be blowing the back out, But to Sophia Milanovic's point, it was still, they were shredding. I was like shocked. And it was the names, again, who I didn't expect. The Luana Silva, the Nadia Aristabe, sorry. Absolutely shredding. It was like, and 7-point ride, then the other one gets an 8, then the other one gets an 8.5, then the other one gets a 9, all the way down to the dying seconds, heat after heat after heat. So everybody brought their A game.
Well, look, the waves are the stars. I'm going to push back on you a little bit because of the waves and Snapper Rocks and the nature of surf on the Gold Coast, which is basically wind swell. You're looking at like 8 to 10-second interval swell. It's nonstop action. The waves provided us with nonstop action, and the surfers lived up to, in my opinion, what they're supposed to do as professional surfers at the top level, which is, go at it. And they certainly did that.
They don't always. That's the thing. Like this season, even the low seeds are doing that.
Well, again, I'm suggesting to you that when you have nonstop waves pouring into the location, everybody gets a chance to kind of get their feet in the wax, to dust off the rust. And when you're at a location like, let's say, Bell's or Margaret, and you're looking at a 15-second interval and maybe 1 or 2 waves coming in, you're simply not getting that opportunity, all of those opportunities to kind of go, okay, I got 2 under my belt. Now it's time to get to work. And, all of us surf better when we've got an opportunity to catch 15 waves in a half an hour. You're going to get 2 good ones.
I agree. And I also think that snapper suits everyone. Like for the surfers who have made it to this level in their career on the CT, they might not have experience out at Bell's. They might not have experience out at Margaret. But the style of wave that snapper is what they, everybody can surf that.
Do you think that the Snapper Rocks event will be the best event on tour this year?
I would hope not.
Well, I would agree, right? But is it possible to get a better stop on tour this year? I mean, obviously we've got the Pacific sort of set up on the back half, but the next events, New Zealand, El Salvador, and Rio de Janeiro. I'm already I hate to be like negative Johnny here, but I'm already expecting kind of like lackluster events.
Yeah, but there's better waves in the world than snapper. I mean, Chopu, Cloudbreak, Pipe, those should all outshine snapper.
I totally agree. But again, the waves are the stars. If there's not swell, it doesn't matter. And
No,
so
of course.
right now, if I was to ask you, are you willing to put money on Snapper Rocks being the best event on tour?
No, I would not. I would not put money on that. And also, but I think I could argue that this will be the most competitive event throughout the course of the season. Like that thing of people who haven't spent a lot of time out there can still perform very highly and win heats cannot be said about Cloudbreak and cannot be said about Pipeline.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I'm sure there's somebody out there that could kind of squish the numbers and determine how close each heat was. What was the difference, the differential in points spread from each heat for this event relative to, say, Bells and Margaret? And I bet it's really narrow relative to those events where there's probably a lot more heats with bigger spreads.
Well, couple of themes that I think are worth discussing in this event. I never would have, at the beginning of the season, guessed that Luana Silva would be in first place.
I know.
Did you even know who she was?
I mean, I think I feel like I've confused her with somebody else.
Yeah.
Hasn't she been around for a long time?
No, she's only 21.
Oh, who's the girl? There was some like elder statesperson woman that rips from Brazil, and I feel like her last name was Silva or her first name was Luana.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's killing me that I can't remember. Yeah, she's long gone at this point. She's been off tour for years.
She was doing airs and stuff, and I kind of thought that was Luana Silva. I apologize to the fans out there that are Luana fans. I'm ignorant and naive here, but I was kind of thinking, oh yeah, that's that elder stateswoman that's been on tour forever that bangs airs.
No, Luana Silva, she also flies the Brazilian flag, but she's from the North Shore. So, or she spent most of her time, I guess, on the North Shore. The WSL has her hometown listed as the North Shore. And if you follow her on Instagram, you see her on the North Shore all the time. So, but yeah, so I'm just saying, like, among all the young surfers that we have pegged that we constantly talk about over at ad nauseum, Caitlin Simmers, Erin Brooks, Molly Picklum, Gabriella Bryant, Luana Silva was not on my radar, and yet here she is in first place. I think final two events in a row, actually, now that I think about it. So huge shout out. And by the way, ripping. Like in every heat I saw her, she was absolutely ripping and going toe to toe with the titleists, former title winners. So shout out to her. She deserves our recognition. Also, Stephanie Gilmore, you already mentioned, but question for you is, how did Stephanie go from last place in the first two events to first place in this event?
Well, I was talking to my friend about her the other day, and we were both in agreement. We were like, I thought it was over for her. Like, I thought after this event, she was just going to retire and kind of go, you know what? It's not for me. You know what I mean? Based on Bells and Margaret.
Yep.
She did not look good. It wasn't like she just lost because things weren't going her way and waves weren't coming her way. Like, it just didn't seem like she was sparky and ready to go. But there's something about Snapper Rocks and Stephanie Gilmore, and she lived up to and that's the other thing. There was a lot of pressure on her, and she totally lived up to that. So she moved up 16 points, 16 places.
Yeah. And to me, what I could attribute it to is there seems to be, a trajectory that takes place with older multi-world title winners, Kelly Slater, John Florence, also Stephanie Gilmore, where it's hard to get them interested. Like the waves have to be pumping to get them interested. And so as they get into this back half of their career, you see lackluster performances, and it's sad. It's like watching Muhammad Ali age out, you know what I mean? But then the waves turn on, and all of a sudden they're like, all of that muscle memory from winning world titles competitively is there, and it can get switched on. Obviously, the talent is still there, and they have more experience in that style of waves than anyone else on tour. So it just becomes a lock for them. And Stephanie Gilmore, this is her spot. This is her home spot. She surfed out there more than anybody on tour. And I think that's where it all came together for her.
Yeah, congrats to Steph. And it's a great storyline for pro surfing and for her legacy. And now, going to New Zealand on a left, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Is this it for her? Is this her swan song event and everything just goes downhill?
Well, could you imagine if she retired on stage at Snapper? Like, hey guys, I kind of did what I came here to do. This is as good as it's going to get. I'm out of here. That would have been pretty baller.
Do you think it is as good as it's going to get? Is she in a semifinal again? I hope so. I think it's a legit question based on the level of young talent that's on tour.
Man, it'd be real cruel of us.
I agree.
To throw her under the bus right after a giant win.
And I'm not here to do that. I just, when I look at like picking my team for fantasy and stuff.
She could win lowers.
And El Salvador,
yeah,
too.
Yeah. Yeah. So the answer is I don't know that she'll win another event this season, but she could definitely make semifinals.
Yeah. Well, congrats. Again, I agree with you. We're just here to be hopeful for everyone. We want everyone to win. You know what I'm saying? At the lack of sounding.
I want the best surfer to win, but
Yeah,
I think she could be the
man.
best surfer at those two locations.
Yeah.
By the way, Silvana Lima is the name
That
you're
too.
thinking of.
Right.
Which I understand. Luana Silva, Silvana Lima. There is, if you were dyslexic, these would be very confusing.
Or if you're just an old dude.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm confused.
So I also mentioned Nadia Aristabe.
Yeah.
Now, here's my problem for her.
Right.
She surfed incredibly.
Yeah.
And yet, I'm not putting any money on her next event. I probably couldn't remember if I saw a clip of her next week, I wouldn't remember that was her. Like, I don't know what it is about how to break through to my awareness, how to break down my preconceived kind of who I like or what I'm into and how she can break through that, other than maybe it's just multiple results. I think maybe she needs a nickname. She needs a catchphrase. She needs like a signature look or something. Because each heat, she impressed me. And then the next time I saw her surf, I'm like, I don't expect anything of her. And then she impressed me again. And then the next heat, I'm like, whatever. She's not going to win this one. That was a fluke. And then she did it again. So maybe it's just consistency that she needs to break through into my awareness.
Yeah. You got me trying to come up with a nickname. It's leaving. I don't have anything yet. So we'll see.
Signature style, a signature move, something.
Yeah.
Connor O'Leary. So a couple other standouts. Connor O'Leary.
Holy mackerel.
I
I feel like he deserves some sort of award just for the way he was surfing. Like, it was insane.
I don't think, he reached new angles and speeds that I don't think I've ever seen before.
Yeah, it feels like he won in a weird way.
Well,
I don't know. He was incredible, man.
Maybe this is related to my question about Nadia, is that Connor's been here for a while. We should expect this from him. The fact that we don't proves that it takes a lot of repetition for us to accept their greatness. Because, he won J-Bay last year, But, he'd get up and riding, and when he would go into an upside down attack, vertical, and crush through the lip again at an angle, and then also a speed that he would do it at, just like wham. That Ace Buchan had a similar approach back in the day that was undeniable. This is like Ace Buchan 4.0. It's at a whole different level in speed, and he has it on lock too. Like, he was doing it over and over and over again. So I was super impressed.
Another guy would be Matt Wilkinson, who sort of had that same look, but not with the power, not with the gouge. And I ask you, can you think of a regular foot that surfs like this backside? It seems like the Goofyfoots can do it, but I can't think of any regular foots that have that same bang. And maybe we'll see something like that at this left at Raglan, because maybe there's just not a left on tour that allows you to unload the way Snapper allows Goofyfoots to unload. But I can't think of any regular foot that bangs it over and over and over.
I completely agree, and I cannot think of one either. And it might be a direct reflection of the fact that there isn't. I can't even think of a left that provides the opportunities that Snapper does for a regular footer to showcase that.
I mean, the one I think of is like macaronis. Like macaronis is a wave where you can just multiple upside down and the irons, bang. But that's not on tour. But let me say this. It brings me to my other point, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but we're in Australia. It's May, arguably, in my opinion, the best month for Indonesia. Why aren't we just going somewhere to Indonesia? I don't care where. Why isn't Indonesia, which everyone around the world recognizes as the most intense wave garden on Earth, why isn't Indonesia on tour? Now, I know from the WSL standpoint, there's probably some logistics. There's for sure probably sponsorship issues. At the end of the day, it probably comes down to money. That's the reason why. And but it's unfortunate because we're right here. We can just fly over. There are it doesn't even have to be at the prime best location. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you could have it at Thunders and everybody would be pretty stoked. You know what I mean?
No, it's a no-brainer. The other surfer who actually lost to Connor O'Leary in the semifinals, but the surfer who I thought looked primed to win the event would be Felipe Toledo.
Huh, that's interesting because I do have Felipe on my list. He did look like that. There are other guys that I thought were going to surprise us. The two that I thought were going to surprise us were Liam O'Brien and Mateus Hurdy. Those two guys look so sparky. They looked like Felipe in his prime. They were just like Felipe is a little thicker and fuller now, which is good. All power to that. I'm all for that. But those guys Liam and Mateus looked incredible. I was just like must-watch TV for those two guys.
Liam actually beat Mateus. They matched up against each other.
Yep.
But I agree with you. And Liam specifically looked so sparky. It was really, really world-class surfing. And we've seen it from him before. He actually finaled at Rottnest, if you remember back in the day. And then he put out an edit right before this season started that was mainly that Cyclone Alfred swell on the Gold Coast that he just absolutely shredded. So we should expect it from him. He's a little bit inconsistent. We see him have put in poor performances, but what we saw from him here was absolutely peak, top level, world class. And I'd like to reclaim something actually.
Yes.
Before the season started, event one, I guess it was Bells, and I said, there's like 5 regular foot Australians, and one of these guys is going to win. Just put your money on any one of them, and they'll all do good. And then they all lost first round. And then we went to Margaret, and they all lost again. And then it was 5 Brazilians in first, or in the top 5. It was actually 4. George Pitar reclaimed. But I was like, man, I couldn't have been more wrong because those guys were ripping leading into the beginning of the season, and then they blew it in the first event and largely the second event. However, back on Snapper, they were all right there, neck and neck, and Ethan Ewing among the best among them.
And by the way, we should say Liam's a friend of the show. I mean, he flew in on a helicopter to visit us down in El Salvador. I want to say it was that last year or 2 years ago. And he visited us, came up to our hotel, said hello to all of us, and he knows where his bread is buttered. Let's just put it that way.
He was very gentlemanly. So yeah, for those who weren't listening to that show back then, to our show back then, they were running the WSL event at the same exact week that we were in El Salvador on a listener surf trip, and the waves were small, or they had a lay day basically for the event. So a helicopter showed up on the beach. We're like, what is going on? And then Liam O'Brien, Matt McGillivray, and a couple of other people got out and came up to the hotel, had breakfast, and then went out and surfed. But Liam was super cool. Yeah. Great to see in person.
Super cool guy.
Yeah, phenomenal surf.
You mentioned Ethan, of course. Ethan winning the event, again, recalibrating the world to a normal setting with he and Stephanie's victory. And Ethan's sort of in that space now where it's like, you don't even need to say anything. You just kind of like, everyone just kind of knows, like he's probably the best in the world.
Certainly in that style of wave.
Yeah.
But question mark around Ethan is he is the focus of professional surfing at the moment with Stab in the Dark, which is a very good version of Stab in the Dark. He's the reason for it. His surfing is that good. And now winning an event, he's the marquee surfer. And can he peak too early this year? In fact, I think that it could be argued Felipe Toledo peaked too early in this event. He brought his best surfing out early, and then it's hard to kind of elevate from there. So can Ethan maintain this momentum as we go through the year?
I don't know, but I'm going to kind of push back a little bit. And I am of and remain of the opinion that Gabe Medina is the best surfer on tour. And he's the guy to beat. And I said it last week, Gabe Medina is Michael Jordan. Gabe Medina is money in every single event. And even though he didn't win this time, he was in incredible heat against Felipe. Gabe Medina is the guy to beat on tour. And it's not Ethan Ewing. Now, Ethan might be 1B, and of course, I'm more, and you too, I will speak for you and say, we're more drawn towards Ethan's style than Gabe. But as far as competitive surfing, Gabe Medina is in first place for a reason. And I would suggest, had a bad event. This was his worst event on tour so far of the three. And, oh, by the way, we're going to a left point. Then we're going to, Rio we're going to El Salvador. Then we're going to Rio. Gabe could win 2 of those events easy and just be way out in front. But I bet he does win 1 event.
Yeah. So the El Salvador event, Ethan Ewing can certainly win. So that would put him back in contention in that conversation. But then after Brazil, we go to Chopu, and Gabriel Medina is what I would bet the house on at Chopu.
Exactly.
And then Cloudbreak after that, which
and then Cloudbreak,
and then lowers.
And the wave pool's in there somewhere too. So,
Yeah, but look, the boys at the top end really have their work cut out for them with Gabriel Medina.
There's no doubt. It's just, Hey,
So
let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and continue.
sounds good.
It's my dog. I've got to let my
course.
dog out.
Of course.
Look at it.
Always.
Come on. Welcome back.
Welcome back. So talking about, you said Gabriel Medina, best competitive surfer in the world, but you might prefer Ethan's style. In this episode 3 of Stab in the Dark, there's a bit of text that comes with the episode release. And in it, they're interviewing Bede Durbich, who's also from Stradabroke, where Ethan's from. So they grew up, Bede being older, grew up watching Ethan. And he said that Ethan actually didn't surf contests very much throughout his youth. And he said he attributes so much of Ethan's current style and success to the fact that he wasn't overly groomed in contests. He's like, I think it was served him fantastically. And he goes, same thing goes for Jack Robinson. Like they were able to develop into their own person and their own style and their own identity, and then bring that to the tour, which I think is additive to the tour, rather than coming through this narrow lens that the judges require and just trying to be a cog in that wheel.
I love that. I think that's really great insight. And I see that even amongst the kids around here. You can see a lot of guys that just mimic. You know, there's a lot of mimicking, and therefore at some point there's no point of differentiation between them and whoever it is that, you know, competitively they're trying to copy. And so it's wonderful that these guys have developed their own dance. You know, they haven't been squashed by, you know, the parameters of contest surfing. They've been allowed to let their freak flag fly, so to speak, and put their hands just so and do their little movements and develop their own space. And I think it's cool, and you can see it. I think that's incredible insight from Bede.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it's a good reminder just for people to hear or listen, or any parents out there to hear and listen who have kids that are coming up. It's just, I understand the desire to see your kid compete and to win, especially if they're an uber talent, but it's not necessarily the best way to foster the talent.
It's funny, you know, when I look back, David, on the early IPS days, I mean, the styles of surfing were so different.
Yeah.
You know, you had Derek Hind, who was just kind of like he had a little bit of MR in him. Like he was pretty, and, you know, then you had Simon, and I mean, you had MR and you had Rabbit. These guys all had completely different styles. And I don't think it's a stretch to say now the competitive surfing style has been homogenized to like do it like this, you know. Now, thank God there are some, like I said, points of differentiation, but man, back then, and then, you know, as pro surfing began to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger, it seems like the styles got squashed into like, okay, here you go, do it this way. Thank goodness for a little bit of flair.
Yeah, and I've stated this before, but it's worth restating. And actually, it's worth examining, I think, which is the entire concept of judging surfing is based on what we've seen in the past. So they create a criteria that is already outdated. And so you have to surf to this criteria that's outdated. But if you come in and do something, we've seen many examples of it, where if a surfer comes in and does something, a rodeo flip, a club sandwich, a layback back in the day, judges underscore it because it doesn't fit in the parameters that they've created for themselves in their effort to make it objective. So there's an inherent regressiveness to the judging format. They don't allow for experimentation. So as a young Ethan Ewing out there surfing as a 16-year-old, just go out and experiment and push your surfing to the max, you know? And then when you come onto tour, obviously if you're good enough at it, you can force the scale to change. You can force the criteria to change. It'll be slow to change, but ultimately you would rather be an innovator than surfing to a criteria that was built on last year's performances.
Yeah, good point. And again, when I think back, I wonder if, you know, there was this wide open. First of all, style was part of the judging criteria back then, and even before the IPS. I mean, there was points per turn on the Australian tour when Michael Peterson was involved, and so I wonder if it's kind of like a moving target. You know, like I often think of like probably peak worst competitive surfing era was probably like 88 to 91 or something like that, when there was like 35 stops on tour and they were all at like Newcastle and just like the worst possible waves. And it created this, you know, like, and then I think it expanded, like especially when the Dream Tour came on and it was Andy and Kelly, especially Andy, he really provided a lot of flair. And I think it might have opened up a little bit, you know, the idea of what a professional surfer should look like with a jersey on. And so I wonder if it just kind of moves and expands with time. And, I don't know, just a thought.
No, I think it does. You have to have somebody that is so good at their art that it's undeniable. And Andy was that. Kelly dominated for so long that everything was kind of seen through the lens of Kelly. All other surfing was measured against the lens of Kelly, or how we viewed him. But Andy was so raw by comparison that it was refreshing.
Yeah, for sure.
One other, or a couple of other things, but one other performance and a particular wave moment that I don't know if you caught if you were watching it live, but it was Leonardo Fioravanti's heat. I forget which day it was when the waves are pumping. He took off with priority on what would have been a 10-point ride. It was this keg of a barrel that he tried to like free fall drop in, but absolutely got detonated, like ate it in the worst possible position. And then he came up from that wave, and in the few moments that it took him to grab his board and gather himself, there was another wave right behind him. It was the very next wave. He somehow collected himself enough to get onto that wave and then ripped it to like an 8.5.
I do remember that, and I did watch it. And what does that speak to, David? Here's a quiz. What does that speak to?
Resilience.
No, it speaks to the short period interval swell that is always provided on the Gold Coast by these small, low pressures. That wave popped up because the waves are the stars. It gave us a chance to see a really great moment in competitive surfing.
I mean, I was so impressed by his wherewithal to pull off that surfing right after a serious wipeout.
For sure. I'm trying to remember who he surfed against, but he gave it his all, and it was obvious that it was one of the main stars.
So
it might have been Mateus or Liam. I think it was Liam O'Brien.
So no, he beat Seth Moniz. I think that was Seth Moniz.
Okay.
And that was in round 2. And then the round 3, he beat Jack Robinson. And then round quarterfinals, he lost to Connor O'Leary.
Right.
But that particular wave, I think that was the one against Seth Moniz.
Yeah.
And it was just an unbelievable recovery. And it's like, with priority, you get the wave of the day and you eat it. You just think it's like, oh, I blew it. This could be the turning point in the heat. And then a wave's right behind you and you're like, well, I guess I'll go. And he surfed it to like I want to say like an 8.
That was amazing. I do remember that. I do remember being startled by, wow, is this a replay? I thought,
know. Yeah, no. Yeah. The other highlight of the event for me was the professional surfers that they got into the commentary booth, or former professional surfers. Like Rabbit was phenomenal. Kelly Slater was phenomenal. Julian Wilson, Owen Wright, Gabriel Medina in the booth. Like it was a never-ending cast of characters. And the moment somebody got out of the booth and you're like, oh, that was really, really good. Sad they're going. Boom, somebody else is in the booth for the next 2 or 3 heats. So fantastic job.
Yeah, that was really good production. I totally agree with you. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's something that the WSL should get some kudos for that type of production. That was really well done. And frankly, I remember staying up to just listen to Kelly. Like, I'm sure the heat was good that I was watching too because the waves were pumping. But I remember telling my wife, I just want to hear what Kelly's got to say about the surfing that he's watching right now, and it was really good stuff.
I thought so too. Very insightful. Him calling waves in real time. Super insightful. He deserves, I don't think he would take the job, but he deserves a spot in the booth anywhere in the world.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
And also, as he was exiting the booth, nobody asked, but he revealed that he had a 4-day-old kid. I don't know if you caught that.
I saw it in social media somewhere, but congrats, a little girl.
As he was leaving the booth, he's like, oh, by the way, I'm a new father. I got a 4-day-old daughter who was just born in Australia. So they've got an Australian kid.
Fair dinkum.
So congratulations to the happy couple and the transition in life for Kelly.
That's amazing. Good for him.
Yeah.
Well, look, New Zealand, El Salvador, Rio de Janeiro, the middle of the tour seems It's going to be hard to live up to what we just saw, but we're all going to tune in and hope for the best. New Zealand could be very, very interesting. Who knows? That's the thing. We don't know. It's a wild card for us and for the tour. So we'll see what happens. It should be fun to check it out.
And it's May 15th, so it's coming up real quick here, less 10 days away, I guess.
I looked already. There's the first couple days they're on a waning swell. Like they might be able to get a couple of days in. Then they got a ton of wind and weird weather. And then from like maybe the 22nd to the 25th, which are the last 3 days, I think there could be some better conditions, because that place, I guess when it gets windy, it's out. But I don't know, because it's so protected. Maybe it's the outer wind that I'm seeing, and maybe inside there. But Surfline was calling it for hideous winds and not good.
Okay. Well, if you want to kind of get familiarized with the environs, follow Raglan Surf Report, because he's been doing reporting through the trials event and everything that's going on. The pro surfers that are coming to town, he's linking up with them and documenting it all in a really creative and funny way.
Right.
Which, if you don't already follow Raglan Surf Report, you probably do. But and Luke Cederman, will be joining me in Peru for our listener surf trip. Last I heard, there was only 2 spots available left. So if you want to join Luke Cederman and myself at Chicama, Peru in August, I believe it's August 22nd, get in on that. You can do it. Email me or waterwaystravel.com, or then I am hello@surfsplendorpodcast.com, and we will lock up one of those spots for you.
I just started following Raglan Surf Report, so I know. I thought I was following him, but who knows?
Crazy, man. You're missing. You're only hurting yourself. It's pure comedy.
There's so much good content. There really is a lot of good content. One of which is my must-see moment, which I think is everybody's must-see moment, which is that new Nathan Florence YouTube episode of him in the Philippines in an aqua. You haven't seen this?
No.
Oh, so it's an aqua blue left-hand ledge that he's calling heavier than Chopu, and it's Nathan and Ivan by themselves out in the middle of nowhere. Another little slab mission with Daniel Russo, who gets kind of worked on the reef, and those guys get some sick pits, but also some ledgy, shallow reef wipeouts, and it's Nathan puts you right there, like you feel it. You know what I mean? You feel like you kind of know what he's going through. More than anything, I look at it and go, no thanks, man. I'm going to sit in the channel and watch you do this. This is for the young at heart.
I saw a headline somewhere that Daniel Russo broke his back.
Yeah, that's in there too.
Was it obviously it's not like paralyzed or anything?
No,
right?
he gets worked pretty bad, and he's kind of limpy-gimpy on the beach, and his back's all cut up. And I think it's later on when they get home that they must have done some x-rays and found a little, I can't speak to his injury, but I sense that, it's not like paralyzed. It's like he's going to need to do some PT, basically. I don't know. Again, I don't want to speak I'm not his doctor. But
first of all, surf photographers are the gnarliest humans. Like water photographers, the amount of swimming and the amount of they sit in the impact zone at waves like that and just narrowly escape getting sucked over the falls over and over and over.
I know. It really is. I don't know. What are we looking for? How would you? It's harrowing. It's underappreciated. What?
Masochistic.
Okay, there you go. There you go. A little bit of that.
And Russo is among the gnarliest of them, do you remember the previous Nathan Florence video from a month or two ago where they were surfing that right at an undisclosed location?
This is kind of like that, but on steroids. It's like that episode.
So that one, where he had to sit in the lineup wasn't as gnarly as the paddle out itself. The paddle out on shallow reef where it was detonating without having a surfboard.
Yeah.
Was I don't even know how he did it.
Yeah, this is much bigger, but there is a rip that he can jump in, but they do all get worked onto the reef, and they're just standing there trying to deal with jumping back, getting back to the channel to take the rip out.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check it out.
Musty Moment presented by Trees Wax, by the way. Make sure you get your petroleum-free Trees Wax. And Christian will be at the Boardroom show as well.
Yeah, 20% off if you use promo code SPIT and you buy it online. I know a lot of great retailers have it on the east and west coasts of the U.S. as well. But you could save 20% and you get an online money-back guarantee as well. So, yeah, thank you. I have a must-see moment of a different sort, but it's historic and I think you can appreciate it. PBS just put out a 15-minute interview from, I want to say, the 60s of Duke Kahanamoku that I have never seen before.
Oh, very cool.
Have you seen this?
No, I don't. I can't say that I have.
I couldn't even tell you who's interviewing him, but it's super rare. I've never seen the footage before, and I'll even play some of the audio for you.
Duke Kahanamoku. Duke, how old are you now?
I am 76 right now.
76.
That's
Your name, Duke, is this your real name or is this an unofficial title?
It is my real name.
Real name. How did you come by?
I just happened that the Duke of Edinburgh first visited Hawaii, and he was the guest of Bernice Pauahi. And Bernice Pauahi is connected to my father. My father was connected to the family of Bernice Pauahi. And that's how the name came that was over to me.
Well, your father was named Duke. Then.
That's it.
Oh, I see. And then you are Duke Junior, in other words.
I am.
Well, now your ancestry.
So they talk about his royal ancestry. They talk about his Olympic swimming career, all that stuff. Fantastic 15-minute interview from the Duke himself.
That's incredible. That's really cool. And I'm sure that Matt and those guys must have access to that footage, but who knows? Speaking of Matt Warshaw from the Encyclopedia of Surfing, but I've never seen that footage. And I've seen, Duke was on This Is Your Life. Like, there's been some TV shows where Duke was on, and I've seen him, but I've never seen that footage, and it looks great.
I think we've all seen the same stuff that just gets regurgitated over and over. And like I said, PBS just newly released this. So it might have been published in an era before digital where it just went live and then nobody captured it.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. Maybe almost somebody went, "Hey, this is incredible. We just came upon this in our archives, and we just digitized it. And oh my God, who knew we had it?" They probably are sitting on a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
Did you know the story though of how he got his name Duke?
No, but the Duke of Edinburgh visited, and Duke Senior, Duke's father, was named Duke because of the Duke of Edinburgh, and then Duke just became Duke Junior.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Pretty cool. I always wondered that too. I was like, Duke isn't a Hawaiian name. Like, where did he get that name from? So it now makes sense. Comes into focus.
And look, our friend Duke Aipa has the name, so there's that strange connection too. That Ben named his son Duke after Duke Kahanamoku, perhaps not even knowing that there's an aristocratic lineage, which might not go.
It works. It's been rebranded in the surf world, co-opted. Yes. And then also, while we're on the subject of Duke, we definitely owe a shout out and acknowledgement to the late great Paul Strauch and the Strauch family. Paul Strauch recently passed. I believe it would have been a week and a half ago. And man, his legacy is long, and not enough great things could be said.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about humility. Talk about a wonderful spirit. Paul, I was lucky enough to be on the board of directors at the Surfing Heritage and Culture Center for 5 or 6 years with Paul, and we met every month, of course, and had our meetings. And he's just such a there's been a bunch of wonderful things that have been said about him, and they've been said about him in a better way than perhaps I can convey here, but all of it is true, and just a sweet man, and a gentle spirit, and an incredibly great surfer, and all the things, about, there's just something about people that move the spotlight away from them towards others that is refreshing, especially in this day and age.
Well, even at the peak of his surfing prowess when he was young, and there was very few, high profile surfers, he was one of them, and he would shirk the limelight even then. Even back in that era, he was like, go go watch these other people surf. He just was doing his own thing. And in an interview that I published fairly recently, he talks about thanking Jerry Lopez. He was interviewing Jerry, and he said, "I was so glad when you came along because you just took all the spotlight over to Pipeline, and everybody went and watched you, so I could go surf Sunset by myself." He's like, people would be driving down Cam Highway, and they just like, "Hey, Jerry's out at Pipe. I'm stopping here," and it basically prevented all the traffic from going up to Sunset.
Well, that's great, and that does speak to Paul's character because he loved to surf and he had so much aloha in it. Again, it's all been already pretty well documented, but what an incredible guy.
Yeah, and there's some people have a presence. You hear the phrase every once in a while, like, "Oh, the presence of greatness," and even though he's actively pushing the limelight towards others and acknowledging those who came before and those who supported him, there is an aura that is undeniable when he was around that is just like, I want to be better. I want to.
It's almost like Dalai Lama vibes.
Yeah.
It's like Dalai Lama vibes. You know what I mean?
When he's in the room, you feel it. And then me specifically, I would be like, I got to try harder. Like, I need to be nicer. I need to level up a little bit. I need to comb my hair,
No, for sure. There's something when what you just mentioned, when Paul was in the room, you don't even know why, but you were just a better person for being in his presence. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, this guy's got to act together, man. I need to kind of move in that direction.
And it was all centered around humility, though.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
and I mean, ultimately, it's aloha. It sounds so cliche to say, but I published an interview with him a week or two ago that his family gifted to me to like get out there to the world after he passed.
Yeah.
And it's his son-in-law interviewing him. And about 8 years ago, it was 2018 or 19 that they conducted the interview.
Yeah.
And he talks about it specifically. And he spent a lot of time with Duke Kahanamoku. He was on Duke's surf team, of which there was only 4 surfers. So he was one of those 4. And of those 4, he probably spent the most time with Duke. And he talked about that aloha was permeated Duke's life. And Paul took that from him. He's like, that's how I want to be, basically. And so centering his life around aloha and the aloha spirit was very intentional, and he did it from when he was very young all the way until his final days. And so that, I think, is kind of what we're talking about.
Well, you know what? Rest in power. He's such a wonderful, sweet man, and I'm going to try to be more like Paul Strauch. To be honest with you, I need that. I need to get some of that humility in my life. And I have a trivia question for you based on all of this. Who were those 4 surfers on the Duke Kahanamoku surf team? I think I know, but I'm going to ask you.
Butch Van Aertstalen.
Yep.
Fred Hemmings.
Yep.
Joey Cabell.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Those were the guys, and Paul, and yeah.
I asked his family, I was like, do you want me to share anything about his final kind of time in the intro to the episode? And they were like, no, other than he was at peace. He was surrounded by friends and family. He got to spend time with those that he loved in the final weeks. And he always had his Hawaiian music kind of playing by his bedside. So he was with loved ones, comfortable, doing his favorite things.
Good for him. Amen. That is so sweet. I'm almost moved to tears right now just thinking about that. That's incredible.
A great life, really, really well lived.
Yeah. Live like Paul.
Totally. Paul Strauch. And then what else was I going to tell you?
I've got one more little quick thing if you got time.
Yeah.
So this footage of these downwind foilers being chased by a great white shark, it became viral. I mean, it was on international news, national news, CNN, BBC. It was everywhere. And I'm sure you saw it.
I didn't actually see it.
Oh, well, it's pretty incredible. It's two guys on foils doing a downwind run. And one guy's got his GoPro camera and he's filming it. And the other guy's being chased by a great white shark. And he's literally a giant lure. Like, this isn't a shark that's, curious, that's sniffing around you to kind of see what's going on. This is a fish in full, I'm going to get some food mode. If this foiler was to fall, which, is pretty easy to do, at least for me, on a foil. If he was to fall, there is no doubt that this shark was going to hit him. You know what I mean? Like this, he was going to be chum in the water. And I'm not sure that that was correctly, conveyed in the bit that I saw on the news. But we're talking high-speed shark going after a lure that happens to have a human attached to it. It was pretty gnarly.
I'm watching it right now. This is in Carpinteria, right?
Yeah, they did a run from Santa Barbara down to Carp.
They're smiling. They're laughing.
I mean, the guy, I think he mentions, he's like, all I did was just focus. I tried not to even think about it. The other guy was kind of laughing and smiling because he wasn't getting chased, is what I sensed. But, I mean, yeah.
The shark is like thrashing its tail like it's in full attack mode.
Yeah. Oh, it's hungry. Like I said, this wasn't a curious shark kind of coming to the surface and looking at you. This was beelining for food.
That is wild.
Yeah. Pretty
well, if he would have bit the foil, it would have damaged the shark.
I agree. If that guy would have fallen, it would not have been good.
How would you feel if you were the guy being chased and then you're like fearing for your life, and then later you watch the footage of your buddy and your buddy's laughing at you getting chased by a shark?
I mean,
Time to find a new friend.
Yeah, it says a lot about. I don't think that guy understood the situation. I don't know. I can't speak for him, but I'm sure they're good buddies and pretty crazy stuff.
Super crazy. Well, look, before we go, let's reference not real water sports, waterwaystravel.com, who obviously we praise for the success of our Nicaragua trip and all of that. We were emailing with Brian yesterday at Waterways, and he mentioned that they just had one cancellation at Tavarua this month, May 23rd through the 30th. It's a last-minute cancellation. The place is usually booked, especially this time of year. If you remember, the WSL used to run the event at this time of year, so it is prime swell window. So there's rarely availability, but if somebody is able to pull the trigger at a last minute 1 week trip on Tavi, it is available now, May 23rd through the 30th.
Okay, let me just say that we wouldn't be talking about this if I didn't have to go to a wedding that week, because I would have snatched that up so quick. And if you're out there and listening to this, hang up, turn this TV off, turn off this YouTube channel, and call Brian right now and book this trip. Waterways Travel.
Yeah, waterwaystravel.com. And then also Surfrider Foundation, now more than ever, really needs your help in the fight to keep the oceans healthy. There's so much going on. There's action alerts. You can just go there, click on the action alerts and see where they kind of need you to direct your manpower towards, because there is power in numbers. And certainly become a member, certainly support ongoing, but also help sign these action alerts to get governmental kind of legislative change for offshore oil drilling, funding for the Beach Act, things like this. So go to surfrider.org.
Yeah, surfrider.org. Become a member. And I'm just looking at the Fiji action. Book that trip, folks. All right, David. Well, look, we said a lot. Until next time, adios and aloha.